And so I have a special guest, as you see, and here's Stephen Koski, the Reverend Dr. Stephen Koski. He was my assistant here a lifetime ago. One of the earliest of my assistants, not the earliest, but the first of my American assistants. We had 4 American assistants way back, and he led them all, as it were, to this place. And I have him as my guest here today, and I'd like you to welcome him back amongst us. We sometimes, when I speak with people here, we sometimes have to tell them to speak up, but I'm quite sure we don't have to tell you to do that. But you're being adjusted nevertheless. Welcome to St. Michael's.
Thank you.
I believe you went to the football yesterday. Did you say yes?
Go Power. I probably have alienated a few, but...
You probably have. When he served as my assistant here for how long?
2 years.
2 years, and then he went off to Adelaide to be a minister of the Brougham Place Church, and also the director of Cairn Miller, set up the Cairn Miller Institute in Adelaide. And part of his task there was, of course, to give one football team his support, which he did over the years. And by virtue of that support, they actually had a win here yesterday. Isn't that right?
It's all about me.
What is the name of this football team?
That would be
Not the Bombers.
Port Adelaide Power.
Port Adelaide Power was his football team in Adelaide. Now, having left Adelaide, how many years ago?
16.
16 years ago, he became the minister of a very large, thriving church in Chicago. Not being satisfied with that achievement, he then moved way out west. Is it west? Northwest, anyway.
West, yep.
To Oregon, where he's went right round the bend to be the minister of Bend in Oregon. That's a bit of a corny way of speaking, isn't it? So he now is the minister of Bend, for some...
9 years.
9 years. 9 years. And he's here this weekend on a special mission, because he and I have been talking about establishing Mingary in Bend. Mingary is our special place through this doorway, for those of you who are visiting. It used to be a chapel. We gutted the chapel and set up a very special, quiet place for people who have been through trauma, tragedies, suffering, sadness, or stress. And day by day, people go in there and just sit, a quiet place. And it's been greatly appreciated. And we're about to begin a further extension of that program as we let people know far and wide, as far as Bend in Oregon, but more particularly to the various people in the various suburbs across Melbourne and country Victoria, that this place exists. And when you're in sadness and sickness, visiting your folks in hospital here in Melbourne, you can perhaps come and pause a while in our Mingary place. Mingary is a place that you can pause and then regather your focus and strength and go further. So you're here for that purpose. And our director of Mingary, Dr. Lynette Kramer, has been talking with him as well, and will do so again this week as part of this extension of Mingary into America. We are offering something to America, and that's something, isn't it? And in a few months' time, Lynette Kramer, Dr. Kramer, will go to Bend and speak to his folk, Stephen's folk at Bend. Isn't that a good idea altogether? What is your idea?
I'm extraordinarily excited. I mean, for too long, one of the things I learned here, for too long, the church has responded to people who are drowning whatever that might look like, drowning in sorrow, drowning in grief, drowning in pain. The church historically has said, you know, what you need is dry land. That may be true, but not particularly helpful. The church has said things like, well, what you need is Jesus. That may be true, but I'm not sure helpful. A different way is to actually move alongside people who are drowning. Maybe hold them up. Maybe help them to develop the strength and the resources to stay afloat themselves. Maybe help them discover what dry land might look like. And so I'm really excited to be part of trying to meet people where they're at and provide them the resources and strength to help them move to where they might be. Father Richard Rohr said, pain that is not transformed is transmitted. So it really is, how might we provide that space, that place that helps people meet and transform their pain so that it's not carried and transmitted through the world. And I'm exceptionally excited about a partnership. I wear this stole here because our church in Bend has a partnership with Habitat for Humanity International in Guatemala. We send 3 teams there a year. About 200 people from my church have been to Guatemala, and we build houses, and we build latrines, and we build water filters, and we sponsor students. And it's partnering with people to be part of a healing influence in the world. And I can think of no better healing, transformative place than St. Michael's and Mingery. And we're really excited to move alongside that and be part of that and to bring some of the energy that is so important here all the way to Bend.
And so how do your people at Bend, do they see this is a good place to be, a good thing to do?
Absolutely. One of the things we really talk about a lot is, the 20th century was very much the century of conflict and competition and consumerism. And there's a recognition that the 21st century must be the century of healing. And there's a recognition that healing in some ways isn't about that person's responsibility over there, but it's the responsibility of each of us. So I think my folks are asking the question, how can we be a healing presence here in Bend, Oregon? And how can we join with others to be a healing presence and influence in the world?
And so, for those of you who don't know Bend, how big is Bend?
Bend is 85,000 people. However, it just showed up in about 10 different magazines as one of the top 5 places to retire and move to, particularly if you're an outdoor enthusiast. So Bend in the United States is one of the 5 fastest growing communities in the country.
And so, is there much trauma, much sadness, much suffering to which our concept of Mingery might speak?
Absolutely.
I suppose it's for everybody, isn't it?
There are people alive in Bend.
And so if they're alive...
if you're alive, you experience loss and trauma and grief. And I love, my favorite poet is Mary Oliver, and she wrote a poem called Heavy. And in that poem, she describes grief, and she says, it's not the weight, but how you carry it. Whether books, bricks, grief, it's all in the way you carry it. So I think whether it be Bend, Oregon, or Melbourne, Australia, I think everyone needs support, affirmation, encouragement to help them carry the weight of their life, whatever that looks like, with more grace, with more hope and with more ease.
I don't want to preempt what you might do, but is it likely that you might also build an edifice in Ben to be a visual part of that healing process, a symbol of healing? Is that your...
That's part of our hope. The mission statement of our church is creating spaces of grace to cultivate hope, healing, and purpose. That's our mission statement. So part of what we're really looking at is what might a space of grace look like. Currently we have an outdoor labyrinth.
Yes, do tell us about that.
That there is a path that our church is on 7 acres, and there's a path that kind of is adjacent to our property. So we created this outdoor labyrinth as a gift to the community. As you're walking from the senior center to the swimming pool, you might stop and think about that journey we all make from the circumference to the center, and perhaps in that center find healing and pause. So that's one of the ways, and we're looking at that. And we also have a newer sanctuary, and the old sanctuary is there. So we're looking at how might we transform this space into a place that people can come and experience healing.
Sanctuary, in your language, is a church building, is it?
Is the worship space, yes.
Yeah. So it may well be that you'll use the old sanctuary for this purpose. Did I hear you say that the church sits within 7 acres?
7 acres, yeah.
It's quite a space, isn't it? Can you imagine 7 acres around here? Quite a walk. All right, I thank you. Before we stop, I'd like you just to say it again. You quoted one lad who said, trauma or suffering which is not...
Pain or trauma, pain that is not transformed, is transmitted. Whether it be in relationships, whether it be in the world, if somehow we don't experience the help to transform the pain that we carry, we are going to be a transmitter of that pain everywhere we go.
And pain can be negative emotions of various kinds, from anger to anguish to grief and so on. So that's a very... Pain which is not transformed will be transmitted.
And I quote you all the time, so it's really kind of comforting to think that you might actually quote me once.
Would you thank him?